Öğleden önceki oturumlarımızda genelde Avrupa'ya odaklandık. Hem Avrupa'daki değişimi, Avrupa'daki mevzuatları, yönetmelikleri, bunlara nasıl uyum sağlayabileceğimizi konuştuk. Öğleden sonrası için biraz daha Amerika tarafına doğru uzanacağız. Amerikan pazarındaki fırsatlara konuşacağız, onları anlamaya çalışacağız. Ve bir sonraki oturumumuz da şu an Amerikan pazarındaki değişim ve fırsatları ele alacak. Başlığımız değişimi tasarlamak, Amerikan pazarında fırsatları keşfetmek. Konuğumuzsa PDS Limited Spring Ürün ve İş Geliştirme Başkan Yardımcısı Sayın Hatun Aytu. Kıymetli alkışlarınızla sahneye geliyor. Buyurun efendim.
Merhabalar. Önce teşekkürler yapacağım TGS'de bu nazik davetiniz için. Ama şimdi affınıza sığınıp prezentasyonumu İngilizce yapmak zorundayım. Çünkü ben bu prezentasyonu Türkçe yaparsam komedi olacak. Çünkü Türkçem iş konusunda fazla seri değil. Good afternoon everyone. Thank you for having me. I just explained in Turkish to my fellow Turks in the room that I have to continue the presentation in English because if I try to do this in Turkish, spoken Turkish, it would not be going so well. I can talk about this stuff all day long. I hope you had coffee, and I have 30 minutes, and I'm going to be speeding through some information that you find helpful. Before I start, I want to say just one thing. Brands would not exist without suppliers. So it's an honor for me to be standing here. Suppliers from raw materials, manufacturing. It is a very important part of developing a brand. How you work with them, how you know the product, and product development is critical. I've spent many years in the US on the brand side, and I've seen my first job. I worked for Ralph Lauren when it was still privately owned. Very small footprint, handful of product, and we were trying to work with suppliers, our factories, on telling them how to wash the mesh piqué polo shirt. They were ready to lose their minds. They just could not believe that we were asking them to wash a perfectly good sample. But with collaboration, with help, we came up with this product. Now everything is washed. Anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to be continuing because I'm running out of time. Just quickly, I will speak about the state of the industry. All of the speakers have spoken about it. Transit lead time impact, U.S. apparel import data. I will not show a lot of data, but it will show you trend, and it will show you where Turkey is coming up. This is all pulled from the U.S. trade data system, OTEXA. And the brand map of the United States, all the brands, how they're aged, where they're sitting, who owns them, and then the emerging brands in the US market. Okay. Macroeconomics. I know here in Turkey that you are dealing with a lot of these in a very strong way. The conditions are not very conducive to working with the United States market. It's happening. It's happening all over the world. It's happening in the US. The pricing, it's a very promotional market. Geopolitical, the list is too long for me to go. But all of these affect and compress the supply chain and has been stressing a lot of the brands in the US. And it causes delays, it causes increase of raw materials, it causes lots of gridlock in the system. Regulatory, Section 301 China. A lot of brands are still making an incredible amount of product in China, although they have converted some of their content. They used to make a lot more cotton because of the UFLPA regulation. Now it's reduced to a lot of polyester. The units, the volume had stayed the same, but the content now has switched to a lot of synthetics. And import and export regulations can change because we're all waiting for the US elections, so it remains to be seen. Natural disasters. That list is also quite long. We just, in the US, had 2 extremely strong hurricanes, the strongest on the books. People lost their lives, they lost their homes, and they lost their, I mean, from a retail perspective, stores were closed. So, oops, I pressed the red button. Okay. So this is a click down. I gave you the macroeconomics. It's global. It applies to every single country. There is a big ultra fast fashion. It's not even fast fashion. It's ultra fast fashion. It's growing leaps and bounds. When I pulled this, it was $190 billion valuation. It's now about $200 billion valuation. I am guilty as charged. I buy product from Temu, and in the U.S. right now, it's about $800. If you bring in products below $800, it comes in duty-free. So the package, the number of packages that are coming in, we're not even able to quantify. I'm just looking at my notes because I pulled the numbers, because it's an interesting number. It's in the hundreds of millions. Yeah, so it's estimated about 900,000 packages come into the U.S. from China via Temu and Shein. And in the United States, 28 million packages come in every single day. So it's a big percentage coming in. However, not quantified. It's pulling data from a lot of bits and pieces. Product is very different. It's not product that, some of it's not wearable, but the problem is it's coming in and it's there. TikTok, believe it or not, there are a lot of brands selling on TikTok, so it's disrupting a brand that's buying for their stores and for their e-com propositions. I believe the #1 brand on TikTok is Nike with $181 million sales in 2024. And then Victoria's selling $103 million, and then American Eagle, Lululemon, even Old Navy. So TikTok is coming in. Markdowns. Markdown causes the American market to be extremely promotional. Everything is on sale. Even before the season gets developed or designed, designers put the pen to paper and design a collection. The leadership and the financials are built around what the markdown dollars are. Truly, they reserve money for what the markdown is. It's actually, it's sad because it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, I believe a lot of brands are not even waiting for the 6-week time. You deliver the product, you wait for 6 weeks, it sells, and then you put it on sale. Right now, products get on the floor with a promotional markdown already. You buy one, get one 30% off. So it's become a very, very promotional model. And I know it's not a rosy picture. I know I'm telling you terrible things, but there is opportunity. When there's a crisis, there's opportunity. So I will get to that. It does not sound very, it's not rosy. I get it. Circularity and resale, it's a big topic. We've heard a few of the other speakers talk about it. It's expected to become about 20% of the overall apparel space. And there are a lot of technology companies that started. I've listed them. Feel free to look it up. ThredUp, The Real. I believe there's one in Turkey called Dolap where you can sell your products. But I'm also guilty as charged. I sell a lot of my clothes and I buy a lot of my clothes there. So it's actually a good system, but it's expected to be about 20% of the overall apparel turn in about 15 to 20 years based on the numbers. Apparel waste. We also talked about it. We heard a lot about it. A lot of the European brands are extremely conscious about waste, which is I love. And in Turkey, I believe we're all ready for it because I did do my homework. I work with a lot of large suppliers. Everyone's ready. It's amazing. In the U.S., we are barely scratching the surface. There are some brands that are doing an excellent job at this. Levi's, Ralph Lauren, PVH. They have the talent, they have the resources, they've invested the money. I have to do a time check, I'm good. They have their resources, they've invested, and they have talent. The problem is, the minute there's a cost implication, they turn the other head, but it's going to be coming to them very shortly. So that's another thing that's, I think has us as an advantage here. There's a lot of pressure, and now there's going to be a lot of brand reputation and investor pressure. Okay. What does this mean? The demand volatility. I spoke about TikTok. I spoke about many different points of sale for a product. Excess inventory. There's a lot of it. I think there was a lot of inventory glut post-COVID, poor planning, margin compression. Many of the brands, based on the price points, they're taking the money out of the product. So it's actually delivering poor quality product. The fabrics are not as nice. The make is not as nice. I see a lot of you nodding your heads. I agree. I have a very hard time buying product. And then there's this need for speed. But it's limits capital. There's no capital in a lot of the companies. They're unable to invest in their marketing. They're unable to invest in technology. It's unfortunately the fashion and apparel space. It's very it's a very archaic industry. It's still pen paper. Some technology is not used. A lot of European brands are doing that a lot better. And what's happened is the pressure has gone on to the suppliers. When I started working, it was LCs. It was a long time ago. I've been at this for a long time. And then we let go of the LCs. We went to 30-day terms, then 45 days. Now there are terms up to 120 days, and then some brands are even asking for rebates. So that's another way of making money. Okay. Transit lead time impact. This did not normalize post-COVID whatsoever. An acceptable production, this is for production, I'm not talking about the early design because that's a lot of other weeks, but an acceptable production lead time is about 110, 109 days. Some of the best brands did it. We're up to now 198. And if you look at the bar graph, the green is basically the transit lead time. The transit lead time includes taking a fabric, moving it from country A to country B, and then making the garment, and then moving the garment from country B to country C. Basically, 50% of your production lead time is spent on transit. Another advantage, nearshoring. Brands are trying to do that. Now, having sit on PDS side, because we are a vendor, we are a part of Spring, PDS is parent company of Spring, I'm seeing a lot of brands, I'm seeing a lot of heads of sourcing, and they're truly are interested in unlocking nearshoring. Nearshoring is raw material at source, manufacturing at source. That's already going to give them 4 to 6 weeks of advantage, and there's a tremendous interest in Turkey, Middle East, North Africa. It's just a matter of unlocking. Okay. This is a little bit of data, but it's information. Knowledge is power. I have pulled from OTEXA, which is the U.S. apparel import data. It is 100% accurate based on the HTS scores. Every single piece that comes into the U.S. gets tabulated. I did pull it from 2019 through 2023. But the first row is the billions of dollars and then the billions of units. I put 2 COVID, I think that's probably like an emoji now, but I did put 2 COVID because those 2 years were abnormal. But coming out of COVID, the numbers went up because a lot of brands made the mistake. We got greedy. We made the mistake of putting our numbers based on what happened when we came out of COVID, and then we're now back to normalizing. However, it tells you the usual suspects. Vietnam, number 1, China, Bangladesh, India. China has lost dollar value due to the fact that they've gone into less value-added products, more synthetics. And I can say that I have another slide, another analysis. I'm happy to give it to you, but the content of product coming from China has changed greatly into synthetics because they had to move away from the Uyghur EU FLPA regulation, traceability. They were unable to provide traceability, so a lot of brands walked away from using Chinese cotton. So that's what happened. This graph also gives you the 80% of the value of units that come into the United States come from 12 countries. Okay, I'm going to show you the bottom 20%. Here we are. Lots of activity in Central America. Turkey is number 5. I'm just going to go to the last row. It's inching up. The value of the goods that are being imported into the United States is going up, which is telling me it is more value-added product, which we have an extremely mature workforce in Turkey. tailoring apparel. We love to get dressed up. It's part of our DNA. It just tells me it's inching up. Now, how do we get there? Okay. Okay. Now, I think this you should find interesting. It's a huge business, the apparel space. I see a lot of cameras going. I'll get out of the way. It's $1.79 trillion apparel market. I don't even know how to write that. I'm not even going to try. US is 351 billion, China and India, surely based on the population. The US brands are aging out. For the $351 billion worth of product, 80% of the brands that are playing in that number, they're 65-year and older brands. And I will show you that map later on, okay? A lot of them started out in the 80s, the boom of 80s, when the malls started building, the shopping malls came up. A lot, you have to fill them with brands. You have to open up stores. They went public. They went bankrupt. Some of them went public twice, which is fascinating. In the last 20 years, a lot of private funds now have been buying up a lot of brands. Even some suppliers are buying brands. Some of the suppliers that are, some agents are buying brands. So the map of the brand ownership has changed a great deal. Life expectancy of a brand now is 15 to 20 years. Well, we just heard Faraday talk about the brand. They have a lot more life in them because they're owning their own destiny. And there are a lot of other brands, up-and-coming brands such as that. The average US household still spends $162. The price of food and gas is up, which was always a non-negotiable in the US, but it happened. And 58% of the consumers tend to shop for apparel in store rather than online. So there's still foot traffic. Okay. I'm not going to go through this, but I have it, and I'm happy to share with whoever wants to have access to it. I don't know if the deck gets shared afterwards, but this is really important if you're planning on looking into the United States market. It's a glossary. Department store, off-price department store, wholesale. Wholesalers sell to department stores. Vertical retailers or specialty retailers, those are the freestanding brands that have their own shops, they manage their own design development, they manage their own production. Activewear, I put activewear because it's a category within itself, Nikes, Adidas, Lululemons, and clubs, which is a big business. It's a grocery store, but there are apparel. In most clubs, apparel can be up to from 8 to 12% of their overall revenue. So you go into a grocery store to buy olive oil and bread or a steak. You can also buy a pair of socks or T-shirts or anoraks. You have to be a member, and fast fashion, Zara and H&M, the usual suspects, and direct-to-consumer, Shein, Temu, Quince. There are some brands that are a few hundred dollars only by selling e-com. Quince, for example. I think it's a $200-300 million brand. And I pull a lot of this data from annual reports, a lot of other retail reports. So again, this is a good way to sort of understand. Unfortunately, all of these lines are becoming blurred. Some of the vertical retailers are now beginning to sell at Amazon. They're selling on TikTok. They're selling at another department store. For example, some of the brands that we've known, they're beginning to sell product at Kohl's, which is a mid-America department store. The lines are getting blurred, and the calendars are becoming very, very complex. This is another graph showing you the distribution channel, but I would basically say department store, off-price department store. So off-price department store is a place where people go to find bargains. So Saks Fifth Avenue has one that's called Off Fifth. There's TJ Maxx, there's Marshalls. These names may be familiar to you because I'm sure you have all, at one point, worked with the U.S. market. I know the process, and some of you are probably working with the U.S. market. What is happening right now is that there's a big push into the off-price market. There's a lot of product that's being designed and developed specifically for the off-price market. Okay? Okay. So, The right side of the page is brands that are wholesalers, they're global, and they're specialty vertical retailers, meaning they own their own destiny. They have their brand DNA in their hand. Some of them have come back from bankruptcy, like Abercrombie and J. Crew. J. Crew was bought by a private fund, I want to say 10, 15 years ago. But now they have their own DNA. They can control their own destiny. 20, 25 years ago, lots of brands that went into bankruptcy got bought up by these large groups called Authentic Brand, Knitwell, Spark, PVH, Tapestry, G3, Marquee Brands, Centric Brands, WHP. This is just a few of them. There are a lot of smaller funds that are buying up brands. It's become fashionable. And I get asked questions all the time, where do I buy a brand? How can I get my hands on a brand? And it doesn't end by buying a brand. You buy a brand, you have to run it. Most of these groups that buy the brands, they actually don't touch a lot of their internal operations or their systems or their sourcing strategy. They leave it alone, but they buy their intellectual property, their international distribution rights, so they can sell sunglasses, they can sell wristwatches using the brand. So they're basically going to be doing whatever they can with the brand and taking it out. Emerging contemporary brands. These are new up-and-coming brands. And this is basically what I did looking at Instagram, looking at social media, looking at stores, reading the news. There's a ton of these. There's a ton of these in the West Coast. They need a lot of help. And I have a few brands here that are, most of them came out, and some of them are working in Turkey, I know that. Most of them came out in the 5-7 years. Some of them are older. For example, J. McLaughlin, this blue logo here, they've been around 20-something years. They just got invested by a fund, but they own, their prices are $200 above, and they have 168 stores. They're making a lot of their products in China, because I just recently went to their store and checked it, and there's a great deal of opportunity. They need to migrate because they're paying 7 to 10% extra in duty. And they're trying to figure it out, they just don't know how. Eileen Fisher is another one, just $500-600 million business. They have higher ticket prices, and they've been able to survive it. So, Faraday, I put Faraday up there because started with product, believed in product, and it's under 10 years, and it's a great story. It was a wonderful story to hear because it's product-led. My last pages are global trade agreements. You are all aware of it. Get asked a lot of questions about the Middle East, North Africa, Egypt, Jordan. I've done business in Egypt maybe 15 years ago. It's not the same Egypt anymore. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to test orders and scale it and pass that savings to the American market, the unlock. And some of you are already in Egypt. I've had a chance to go and speak to you. There's African Opportunity Act, AGOA. There's a lot of Chinese investments that going in there. That's going to be the next area a lot of them are exploring. Just by being in this region, American retailers are able to save about 4 to 6 weeks in their transit lead time. That's going to give them the time. Today, the lead times are a year out, and they're just looking to build speed somehow. And the last one is just an overview and the globe, what the global trade agreements are within the U.S. And I believe I just made it in time, unless there are any questions. Oh, sorry, key takeaways. It's a very slow country to develop a business. You have to take your time. It's very cumbersome. You have to make a lot of samples, unfortunately. It's much more complicated than it needs to be. However, the U.S. brands are very much used to the Asian supply base that do everything for them. A lot of people who work in the leadership roles have not had a chance to travel. They do not know the world as well, and they're very codependent on approvals. It's good to have some sort of investment with a credible person in the ground because the dynamics change all the time. Companies get bought out, companies get started. There are companies in Miami that have started up because people moved to Miami during COVID. And One season it's $70,000 order. Next season it went up to $100,000. So there's an unlock that I think that this engine here we have in this country, because you can do multiple products, can go and better, more value-added products, so you're not dealing with the strain. Although I do feel there's a lot of opportunity with some of the off-price propositions with the right price fabric if you design into it and if you could maximize, depending on where your manufacturing is. And leveraging the relationship with brands. You have to be a part of the brand. It's very critical. But it is a slow-moving process. I'm sure some of you know that way too well. Okay, thank you.